and welcome to SteamLUG Cast Season 4, Episode 2. We're recording this on January 22nd, 2016. I'm Hero. With me, I have Corbin.
Hello.
Telly.
Hello.
And a new host, Mohero.
Hello.
So, let's get started with what we've been playing lately. What have you been playing, Corbin?
I haven't had much time for playing, at least not for a single player. So the all-time games I play are those idle clicker games again. Still getting those achievements, like Time Clicker and Adventure Capitalist. And in Adventure Capitalist, a new event started, so I'm trying to beat that. And I had some interesting issues as the event started. We've been on vacation. And my girlfriend also plays this game, and we tried to play it simultaneously on one machine. So just by logging out in the Steam client and logging in with a different username. And it turns out then that on Earth, the angel investors on her game were stuck to 0. So we had to contact the support, but they were very helpful in restoring them. And maybe we found a bug. So let's see if that helps in the future. On the other hand, I just played some multiplayer games with SteamLUG people and with some of my friends, like Blaze Rush, which still is so funny. But I have to admit, after an hour, you have enough of it and want to change to another game. So I also played some CSGO with my friends and some Company of Heroes. The first one, which works very well in Wine, even the new Steam version. Yeah, and we had some of the SteamLUG events where I attended, like Guns of Icarus Online and Grid Autosport. So much to me. How about you, Tilly?
I attended the Awesome Knots event, and there's a spontaneous go of Natural Selection 2 with some of us. And we also have been messing around with Grid Autosport, and I also have been poking around with the Talos Principle. Got all excited in Talos Principle because I went and found myself a out of bounds.
Don't forget the big news of your new wheel for Grid Autosport.
Oh yes, I have a wheel that I got in an impossibly low price.
Hooray!
Completely changes racing games.
So is it a good replacement for the Steam controller?
I don't do controllers. I would not know.
So yes for Telly.
I am biased against controllers.
But the Steam controller is so good.
Right? So how about you, Mohero? What have you been playing?
Mostly Grid Autosport for me. Great fun online. Not so fun in single player if you don't like the AI. But there we go. The other games I've been playing are Loftrosters, which is really great for jumping in and out of when you don't have a lot of time to game. And Action Henk. Action Henk is a kind of sideways scroller running game where you get to slide on your ass a lot.
Luftrausers.
Yeah, it's kind of jump in and jump out very easily. You can fly around and shoot other planes down 2D style. It's kind of good. It's kind of good fun.
I agree.
Yeah, and what about Hero? What have you been playing lately?
Coincidentally, I've been playing lots of Grid Autosport as well.
Ha!
So I also was at the impromptu Natural Selection 2 event that we had. Did some commanding in that, and it was pretty fun. I've been playing some more Civilization 5, which every single time I play that game, I dream about it the night after. I don't know what it is, I just want to optimize everything, and just one more turn. And then, instead of attending the Awesome Knots event, I was playing lots of Planetary Annihilation with a group of people from the community. That was pretty fun. At some point we had a 5-person free-for-all. So, that's... I always enjoy playing Planetary Annihilation. It's just getting a good group of people that have a similar skill level and playing for a while can be really fun.
Did you already try the Titans kind of add-on? Which is...
No, I do not have Titans yet. Most of us didn't have it, so we couldn't play.
And for the Natural Selection 2, as I read on the net, the update before the last update made the performance on Linux quite bad. Has that been fixed?
I didn't notice any problems, and no one else that we were playing with was complaining, but it's hard to say. My computer can usually handle when there's small regressions, and I wouldn't notice it.
I've not noticed any problems on Planetary Annihilation either. Played it at a few LANs, and it seems to be the Windows guys fall over long before I do.
I just remember for Natural Selection 2, I often had to adjust the local settings when I started the game. And that bug had been fixed, but was reintroduced again, and searching for such issues eats some time. I haven't played it lately, so I hope it still works. I have to play it again.
So moving on to SteamLUG community stuff. For our past events, we had Left 4 Dead 2 on the 8th. On the 9th, we had Grid Autosport. On the 15th, we had Daedalus No Escape, and on the 16th, we had Awesome Nuts. Did any of you attend any of those?
I joined in the Grid Autosport because why not? I have to say it was one of the first times I've joined one of the events and left at early hours of the morning, got up the next day and seen other people still playing.
Yeah, I also attended the Grid Autosport event and played it with a Steam controller, and I had to realize that this is not flat out 2. The controls are quite different, the gameplay is different. You have to avoid to touch other players, which I didn't make as it should have been. So most of the times I had the last place.
Unfortunately, I bump into Hero a couple times too many in Grid. Sorry, Hero.
Things happen. So I was at the Left 4 Dead 2 event. We played through a few levels on the campaign while I was there, playing versus, switching back and forth. That was pretty fun, but there's also a little bit of a skill gap. So some of the matches were not so balanced, but it worked out. I was also there for Daedalus No Escape, and that is really interesting. It's a top-down sort of arena shooter, so like Quake or Unreal Tournament, but top-down. And that we played for quite a while. It's so different, because in that perspective, it's just such a different game, but it feels so familiar, it's weird. So we played against the AI for a little bit, and mostly got destroyed by them, but occasionally we were playing against each other as well, and that was pretty fun.
Yeah, when you look at the Steam page, they say if Quake 3 and Alien Breed made a baby, it would have been Daedalus. So from Alien Breed you have the top-down view, but the shooting part is from Quake or Unreal maybe.
Right, and picking up collectibles and things around the map.
Yeah. And what's interesting also, you only can see directly in your line of sight. So if somebody is behind an obstacle, you cannot see him. And you should turn on, well, maybe you should turn on your flashlight, so you have a little bit more sight, but it will also reveal your position to other players.
Yeah, I really like the flashlight in the darkness. There's some corridors in those maps that are just completely dark unless you turn on your flashlight or start firing your weapon.
Yeah, I was surprised how much fun this game was. So, Telly, you have been to the Awesome Notes event. Tell us about that.
Just a handful of us, and had enough for 3v AI. There's 4 of us, so we ended up having 2v2 with 1 AI on each side.
That sounds fun.
I heard it's the gameplay is like Dota, but only in 2D.
Right.
It's a action platformer MOBA.
Ah, MOBA.
As for upcoming events, after this cast, we have a Starbound event. Tomorrow, we have 7 Days to Die. On the 29th, we have Pulsar Lost Colony, and on the 30th, Saints Row.
Which is Saints Row 4, I guess.
Saints Row 4 and Get Out of Hell.
Ah.
So,
how many people can play that together?
It's only 2-player co-op, but we plan on splitting into groups. There will be many hosts to help organize it.
As far as I remember, at least for Saints Row 3, you could play it with up to 4 players in co-op? Or was it also only 2?
I'm not sure, I've never played any of them. Maybe by then, Saints Row 3 will be ported.
Woohoo!
Moving on to other happenings within the community. SteamLUG.org got an update. We merged all of the changes that had been staged onto the live version of the site. Thank you to John Drinkwater, Cheese, Corbin, Space Pope for their contributions to the website. Also, on our server page, there is a new addition. Mohero, do you want to talk about that?
So I've added an Arc server. So there is now a SteamLUG Arc server available. Currently, the most players we've had on there is 5, I think. It's pretty stable. The server is automatically updated at 2 o'clock in the morning. So if they push up an update, then it updates itself at 2 o'clock in the morning UTC time. So generally, it's always up, it's always available, and anyone's welcome to join it, really.
Cool. Thank you for contributing that server.
Well, not a problem. I'll be adding other servers to the host over time, depending on what's popular and what's overloaded on our other gaming servers. And yeah, I mean, the problem with Arc is that just for the server, you need 6 gig of RAM.
Wow.
Is that a flat 6 gig, or does it go up and down with players?
It goes up a little bit with players, but its base level is about 5.5 gigs, something like that.
And this is the first game server hosted in the UK by us,
That's true, yes.
so it's quite special.
It's on a fairly good link. It's 100 meg bidirectional, so we should be okay.
Hooray!
So, Cheeseness, part of our illustrious community, has created a text adventure using his Icicle engine during Mist Jam 2016, and it is a text adventure oriented tribute to Mist, which has VR support.
So it's a first-person text adventure in the same style as other games that are made with the Icicle engine that we have mentioned before, like Winter's Wake. So you can go check that out on itch.io.
Yeah, I can imagine that playing a text adventure with VR is quite interesting, because that's a way to play games that, well, at least text adventures are not really made for, I guess.
Not traditionally.
Think with Portals.
Moving on to Steam and Valve news, there has been an issue standing for a while in Source 1 games, especially Counter-Strike Global Offensive and Portal and others, where the audio would be stuck repeating the last thing that was played, just a short bit of audio, and would never work again until you restarted the game. So this has been fixed, at least in Counter-Strike Global Offensive.
So the report I heard was it was until you went into the audio settings and changed the number of speakers you had. So if you went out of your way and beat yourself against a wall, you could get away with not restarting.
Nobody likes beating themselves up against walls.
It's a matter of opinion.
So Valve has not shown any signs of slowing their updates for the Steam controller. In the beta clients, there's been a few big changes, including a brand new export system, which makes it really easy to distinguish between private and public configurations. It also allows you to save configurations as templates now, so you're no longer restricted to the ones that they provide. You can load your own private configurations from other games, so if you're playing one game and then you go on to the sequel, you can just load the one that you already had made. And they introduced a change that requires 1 hour of playtime in any game before you can export a configuration as public. So that's to restrict people from spamming out new configurations and requires that you test it and you know that it actually works. But after you've reached that 1 hour playtime, it is very easy to update an existing configuration that you have made available. In addition, there have been smaller bug fixes and firmware updates to tweak the functionality of the Steam controller. And in a separate update, they added better support for games running outside of Steam, so it should be possible that games that are not started from Steam, if you don't add it as a non-Steam game, it'll still pick up the configuration that you were using as long as Steam is running.
I'd like to add there as well that I noticed that I added Kodi Media Player, and the Steam community configs for the Steam controller showed up.
Yeah, so
there's community configs for third-party applications.
Yeah, and they show up when you launch that application.
That's cool.
Yeah, that's been available for quite a bit now, but it's really useful. I've made configurations for OpenMW, for example.
That's cool. I was not really aware that the community stuff would work with non-Steam games until I added Kodi. It made life much easier.
Yeah, it's prompted me to add all of my non-Steam games to Steam. Which before I never used that functionality.
Yeah, but not only the Steam controller gets some updates, also the Steam Link is being updated. And there's a new beta build up, which allows you to force the device to have a 720p resolution just by placing a proper file on a USB stick and have it plug in while it's started.
Is that an empty file, or does the file have to contain something?
It's just a plain text file that has a particular name that contains 720p. Put it on a USB stick, plug it in, and it switches it.
That's very cool.
Yeah, I haven't had any problems with the resolution yet. Even though my desktop PC doesn't even have 1080p, so it's something in between 27p and 1080p, but there wasn't an issue until now.
Well, it seems like they added this functionality in case your local network can't support 1080p, so that if your Steam Link is struggling to stream a game, then you can try switching it to the lower resolution and see how that works out. And also probably useful if you have a monitor that can't do 1080p, or a TV.
It also gives the opportunity if some clever people figure out how to run the Steam Link software on other system on chips, and they have a weaker GPU, better chance that 720p will work.
Yeah, that too. Speaking of that flexibility, the Steam Link SDK has been released.
Woohoo!
So you can go on GitHub and download a bunch of code and examples that allow you to write applications for the Steam Link.
So far, the only example appears to be Kodi, which is a really useful example.
Yeah.
Yes, very useful.
Yeah, they also revealed the hardware specs of the Steam Link, which is a single-core ARM v7 at 1 GHz, just 256 megabyte of RAM, and only 500 megabytes of flash storage. But from what I've seen, that's enough for streaming games. And there have been some speculations if you can now port the software from the Steam Link to other devices like the Raspberry Pi, probably the Raspberry Pi 2. So you might have the streaming functionality and the software on a device that is more powerful, but at probably the same price. But as I have seen, the Steam Link software itself is not in the GitHub repository. So you can only develop applications for the Steam Link and put them via USB file on the flash storage maybe, but cannot modify the software itself.
So the Steam Link is also running Linux kernel 3.8 and uses glibc 2.19. It supports OpenGL ES 2.0 and has Qt 5.4 and SDL 2.0.
To continue with Steam news, the Steam Winter Sale apparently has been twice as successful as the Summer Sale, which is quite interesting, as in the Winter Sale, Steam or Valve changed their strategy from having daily deals with some flash sales, so you could get some games at really high discount. So in the Winter Sale, you only had one price for those games, but over the whole 2 weeks. And it still turns out that it was more successful.
Yeah, so they made a lot more money off of this winter sale. Because they required you to go through the queue in order to get cards for progress towards the badge for the sale. A lot of people were adding games to their wishlist, and perhaps buying games through the discovery queue. I like the new approach. It feels a lot more honest to me than having people wait for flash sales and only buying on the last day if the game they want doesn't appear in a flash sale or a daily deal.
They did a pretty good job getting their own servers DDoSed.
That too.
I also think that's a better approach, because you don't have so big stress if you want to have a game on sale and have to look there every 8 hours if it's on a flash sale. So you can decide in the whole 2 weeks if you want to have a game or not.
It's also possible that it helps fight the race to the bottom as far as prices go, since developers are less likely to put their game for a much larger discount, just because it'll only be up for 12 hours.
Yeah, the only thing they changed was they daily presented other games on the front page.
Right, which still greatly influences sales, but it's no longer adjusting prices throughout the whole sale.
Yeah, let's see with which idea they will come up next in the next sale. If they will stick to this model or change something again. And as people have been buying so many games, Valve has to upgrade their backbone because all people want to download their games. And together with the level 3 provider, Valve now deploys 100 gigabits Ethernet ports, which they did because the bandwidth was rising a lot in the last years and will probably rise in the next years. And so nobody will have some congestion on the internet while downloading. They increased their bandwidth.
Download your games faster, now!
Yeah, and we have one more hardware item from Valve, which is that the head-mounted display from Valve and HTC, which is called Vive, will be ready for pre-order on 29th of February.
So we still don't know what the price is going to be, but as they've been bragging about how premium the device is, we can assume that it's likely to be higher than other offerings on the market.
And there's only one other offering on the market at the moment, I guess, at least for PC gamers.
Google Cardboard?
Totally counts.
Yeah.
I mount my 22-inch display to my face with Google Cardboard. It's a VR.
Can I have a picture of that?
The monitor is fine, it's the counterweight to make sure it doesn't fall off the head. That's the trouble.
Good workout anyway.
Yeah, but nevertheless, we will know the price when it will be ready for pre-order and not before, I guess. We are moving now to the tech news. The Oculus Rift, we also didn't know the price before it was available for pre-order. And that's available for $599, or at least here in Germany for 720 euros, because they have to import it and you have to pay taxes. And that's really a lot of money, because this is not the only device you will need. Probably you will also need to upgrade your graphics card, maybe around 1,000 euro just for playing VR.
Yeah, and the price seems pretty complicated as it's very different in different regions. The only one that seems to be consistent is that in the US it is $599. But everywhere else, in some places they're saying it's 500 euros, and maybe that's only before all the taxes and
shipping,
other things, right?
Yeah, which is nice for the backers. They get the retail version for free.
But what they don't get is Linux support.
But this is not only for the backers. It also includes a nice suitcase, because they realized with not a lot of people have a VR device yet. So if you have one, you want to show it to other people. And with the first development kit, a lot of people were carrying it around, and they had a case for that made of cardboard, I guess. And it was quite robust. The DK2 was shipped in a plastic case or something else. Can't remember. But that looks like it got broken after a while. So they said with the retail version, they also want to have a nice suitcase so people can carry it around, show it to other people. So it's also a premium product. It also includes the Xbox One controller, and it will have some games for it, like the Eve Valkyrie and Lucky's Tale.
So Valve is preparing an internal first-pass test package for VR, which it can be assumed is being passed around to people for demoing the Vive headset. This contains a huge list of games, including many that are not yet revealed. But it's pretty safe to say that they're serious about building up the ecosystem behind the Vive.
Half-Life 3 confirmed.
That's been confirmed a lot now.
You can pre-order it.
Half-Life 3 confirmed since 2010.
Oh my.
Yeah, lately a shop in Sweden or in Denmark offered to pre-order Half-Life 3 now.
AMD has recently promised that Vulkan will be available on all GNC cards.
GCN.
Oh, GCN cards?
There was a fair bit of fuss when they put out an initial statement for support, which said Catalyst support for Vulkan will be on cards that use the AMD GPU kernel module, which is GCN 1.2 for the R9 285 and newer cards. My interpretation of this is their initial deployment, the very first, here it is, let's get it out the door, is just limited to that, not that there's a technical limitation. And it makes sense to me that the new kernel module that they're making a whole bunch of changes on and fiddling with would be the first one to get support.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And it doesn't mean anything for what the final set of support is. In any case, this tweet came out as a reaction to that initial announcement, saying that there will be support on all GCN cards eventually.
Someone on Reddit did an analysis of the most played games on Steam, sorted by hours played total, and had some interesting statistics about the percentage of Linux games in there. So, by the top 10 games, and by hours, it is 90% Linux games. Of course, most of those are Valve games, and it's split off in a bunch of other ways you can look into, including non-Valve games, the top 100 and the top 1000, as well as how the percentage changes if every single game that has hints of Linux support, according to SteamDB, were also included. So if you're interested in any of that information, you can check out that post on Linux Gaming.
Yeah, the statistics quite corresponds to my library, at least the top 1000, which says that about 1/4 of my games are available for Linux, which is cool. And the top games I play anyway are on Linux, so...
Right, well this is interesting because it's not just the number of games that are available, it's the amount of hours that are played in the games that are available.
Oh, that too, okay. Yeah, but still, that corresponds to the availability. Right, let's move on to general gaming news. We have a lot of games released on Linux and a lot of more are coming. So the first one on this list is Punch Club, which got released. Does anyone of you have that game already?
I do not.
Or do I?
Me neither.
So this is some sort of management fighting game? Not quite sure how that works.
Cue the Rocky music.
And a name obviously nodding its head to Fight Club. A big release is Medieval 2 Total War Collection, which is now available on Linux thanks to Feral. Not only is it available for Linux, but it also works on AMD and Intel graphics cards with the Mesa drivers. Homefront the Revolution, a story-based, single-player and cooperative open-world first-person shooter, received a release date that will be May 17th in the US and May 20th in Europe, I believe. They plan to have day one Linux support, and if everything pans out, this should be the first CryEngine game available on Linux.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's not Evolve. Haven't heard about updates on that front.
No, we have not. That Dragon Cancer was released, but unfortunately not for Linux. There seemed to be a little bit of confusion, but the devs have clarified that there's a misunderstanding about the contract that they had with Razer for the Oya, and Linux builds should be available on Steam soon.
Yeah, this game is kind of interesting, as it's a narrative game where you play the story of a family who is losing their kid due to cancer. I've seen some reviews of it, and yeah, it's quite heartbreaking.
In this, I feel like there's a lot of hype for this game while the Kickstarter campaign was running, and they displayed very prominently during that it was going to be released on Linux. So it was quite disappointing when they did not have a Linux build at first and seemed not really communicate anything about it, but that's all been cleared up and should be available at any time now.
Another game which has been available on Linux for quite a while now is Peppo and Yo, which is now available on Steam for Linux.
So this is pretty funny to me. It was the port for Linux was originally released in the Humble Indie Bundle 10, which was January 7th, 2014. So 2 years later, it's finally on Linux on Steam. Before, it even had Steamworks integration, everything worked perfectly. So you would even get the achievements and the playtime, but you couldn't download it or update it through Steam. And now you can.
Yeah, the devs said as they are a small indie studio, they just didn't have the time to upload it on Steam. So it helps reminding and asking kindly again and again. And at some point they will update it and make it available on the other platforms.
Rocket League has had a lot of interesting changes on their depots. It seems like they could be releasing for Linux at any time, possibly even before the sale that's currently running ends, but we really have no idea. It's all speculation, but we know that something is happening internally.
And as they mentioned, the game will be on Linux before the Xbox One release. Looks like they only have 1 week left.
Flipfly is now on its second showdown for their prototypes. As we previously mentioned, they are releasing small prototypes that users can then download and test, and then vote for which idea they would like for them to work on. These have Linux builds, just as the last showdown. Currently available is Laserpun, which is like chess with lasers, something like that. Looks interesting, as well as The Last Colony, where you're controlling a colony of ants.
Did you already try those games?
No, not yet.
Also now available on Steam is A Boy and His Blob. As I saw this announcement on Twitter, it reminded me immediately of a game that I've seen on the NES in former times. And the principle is still the same. So you are playing a little boy that has a friend, which is apparently a blob, and you can feed this blob with some, what are those, beans? Different beans with different taste, and the blob will transform then into into some helpful things like a ladder or a hole you can fall through.
It's okay, we don't judge.
Yeah, and this is also available on GOG and Steam and everywhere.
So this is not just a re-release, but a reimagining of the original NES game, right?
Yeah, it has updated graphics, and I guess the level design is completely different. I watched a YouTube video of the NES version, and well, the level design was quite old, of course, then, and I guess this has been updated for sure.
We have a new hit on the Feral Radar. In the Very Soon section, coming to Linux and Mac, there was a hint that is very similar to Euler's identity. It evaluates to 1. This is a formula that evaluates to 1. A lot of people think that it will be Formula 1 2015. The image that they associated with this is also a pearl, which could be interpreted as Silverstone, or Silverstone Circuit, the well-known racetrack. To support this, there's also been Linux and Mac depots for quite a while, though they are still empty. And Feral also ported both Grid Autosport and Dirt Showdown, which are also Codemasters racing games. So I think it's pretty safe to say that the Linux port for F1 2015 will be available fairly soon.
Yeah, first when I saw the picture of the pearl, I thought it was a silver eye or something. And I didn't recognize in the first place that it was a pearl.
Oh, my mistake. Dirt Showdown was brought to Linux, but not by Feral. That was done by virtual programming. But in any case, it's a Codemasters racing game coming to Linux, so seems fairly certain.
Yeah, and I mean, it's probably not that surprising with F1 2015, as it runs on the same engine as Grid Autosport as well.
The Interactive Adventures of Dog Mendoza and Pizza Boy has an official launch date now, so it will be coming out on March 4th. This is an adventure game made by Oakham Studios, who are the ones that released the Godot engine.
And for those who don't know, Godot has been Linux friendly.
And open source.
Okay, Layers of Fear is coming to Linux. And it will be ported by Aspire?
Yes. So this is a brand new shiny horror game that I don't know much about, but if nothing else, it has nice graphics and scary promotions, and a lot of people are really excited about it. In addition, for Layers of Fear, it will release on February 16th, and it'll be simultaneous Windows, Mac, and Linux, as well as PlayStation 4 and Xbox One.
Okay. Before we move on to the crowdfunding section, I wanted to say that there are still some games which are missing at least official releases on Linux, but there are signs of Linux support. For example, we are still missing Gianna Sisters. They said they will have a Linux port available later this year, and I guess that was 2014. But we know that there have been some issues with the porting company, and then they tried to port it in-house. And lately I stumbled about the Steam community forum, that entry. And looks like they're still eager to port it and want to release it, but they still have nothing new to tell us. So hopefully they will release it at some time and will manage to port it. Another thing I want to mention is the game Sunless Sea. There I haven't seen anything about, at least not on the normal things where I look about Linux games. But if you bought the game, they do have experimental Linux build, and if you send them a request and can prove that you bought the game, they will send you the experimental build. And looks like this game is quite good. A lot of to read though, but as I've heard, it's a kind of roguelike and also has elements of pirates.
And everybody likes pirates, right?
At least I do. Arr. Let's move on to the crowdfunding section. As we don't have enough racing games on Linux yet, there's another one called Slipstream. And this is inspired by classics of the arcade area, like Lotus Turbo Challenge and other games.
So this is a very retro arcade, 80s aesthetic sort of racing game.
And the special thing about it, it's completely developed on Linux, I guess.
Hooray. And with that, we bring this episode to a close. You can mention feedback at our email, cast@steamlug.org. Talk to us on IRC, on freenode.net, #SteamLUG. Tweet to us at SteamLUG. Visit us on Google+, plus SteamLUG, and listen to previous casts and occasionally watch gameplay videos on our YouTube channel, SteamLUG.
Woohoo! All the SteamLUG!
Thanks for listening. Bye!
See you next time. Bye bye!
Bye bye.
Fare thee well.
Woohoo! 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 More blah. So who is afraid about talking about the last item on this list?
All of us.
Nothing to be afraid of, but fear itself. It's all yours, Corbin.
I'm not afraid. I played Alien Isolation. Yeah, I see a rearrangement in the audio edit there.
I do too.
Or are there any other of our co-hosts here? And then there was silence.
Bye.